this is Nancy, and today I am making Parmesan walnut shortbread. They're actually a savory shortbread, and they're little crackers that are so easy to make and really delicious. I'm starting with 2 sticks of butter, which I have put in the mixer, and they were nice and soft already, so they don't need much more. Then I'm gonna add 2.5 cups of grated Parmesan. See how fine that is? It needs to be fine so it really mixes in well. I get all that goodness in there. You could use any other similar cheese, Asiago or Romano, anything that sounds good to you that's like that, but it does need to be kind of a firm cheese. Okay, let's get this mixed in a little bit. That's good. You don't have to do it with a stand mixer. You can do it with a hand mixer. You can do it in a food processor. You can even just do it by hand. It all comes together very fast. Now I'm going to add 2 cups of flour. You don't want it too heavily packed here. So I want to fill the cup, overfill it, and then scrape it so it's even. And y'all know, if you are using one of these babies, you never put the flour in when it's going really fast, because otherwise the flour will be all over you instead of in the mix. So that's really the only reason I'm adding it slowly. This is a very unfussy recipe. Okay, that is cup number 1. I'm stirring this to aerate it a little, so it's not quite as packed. And again, scrape it. And I don't know if you can see, but it's already mixed in. It's very fast. Okay. I am adding 1 teaspoon of salt. I like a nice coarse sea salt, but I'm going to add just a little more because the crystals are so huge that it's really like a little less salt. If you're using basic table salt, you might want to do 3/4 of a teaspoon. And I'm also, you don't have to do this part. I have some thyme. Just going to add a few shakes of that. Not necessary, but it adds a nice flavor. I make these a lot in the summer for parties, and it's really nice to have fresh thyme in there, which I also like. Last are the walnuts. This is 1 cup of very finely chopped walnuts. You need it to be fine because your cookies are going to be thin, and big pieces are going to make it hard to cut. So I'm going to put that in. Turn it up a little. It's not going to be a wet dough. As a matter of fact, it's not going to look like it's coming together. You need to do the last little bit with your hands. That's about it. And as I said, you can do this straight by hand with a wooden spoon. You can do it with a hand mixer and food processor. I've done it all of those ways before. I also have made it with pistachios, which is fabulous and looks really pretty because of the green. And that's probably our favorite, but you have to shell on pistachios and it takes forever. So if you have a little pistachio shelling party going, that would probably work out pretty well. So I'm going to put a little flour in my hands, and I'm going to start just squeezing this together. It's pretty forgiving dough. What you want is just for it to all come together nicely into a ball. That's pretty close. It is patted out on some wax paper. You can use parchment. Wax paper is cheaper, and it works just as well in this case. So I'm just going to dump it all out. You see it's still pretty crumbly. That's okay. It'll come together. Get all that goodness out of there. And then I'm going to squish this together kind of into a ball. Now there are various ways to do this. I did it for years because I've been making this forever. I did it for years with wherever I got the original directions. It said to roll it into cylinders and then slice it like refrigerator cookies, you know. But I found I'm not very good at rolling it into a really nice cylinder, and especially with the nuts in, it was very difficult to get a nice smooth cylinder. So when I did it, I would get these really weird amorphous shapes. So now I just squish it into, like you would with cookie dough, squish it into a kind of a pancake, a thick pancake. And I'm going to refrigerate this until it's cold. I should say that when you are using it, the butter has to be room temperature to start. But now we want this all cold so we can actually roll it out. So I'm just going to do this and put it in the fridge for a couple hours, and then we'll roll it out and bake it. So once your dough is chilled, roll it out. About a 1/4 inch thick. I roll it into a rectangle because I think it's easier to cut that way. I'm going to just trim the edges a little. Save these, you can roll them back out again. And I'm just going to cut it in squares. See this? I didn't mix the butter in perfectly, but I'm not going to worry about it because most of them will turn out perfect. Okay, you don't want them too big. So I'm just going to cut them like this. I have a cookie sheet all prepared with parchment. My oven is set to 400 degrees right now. And they're going to cook for about 10 minutes. Now, if I were on the Great British Baking Show, I'd be using a ruler and measuring so that every single one was identical, but I don't really care. As I said, you could use cookie cutters if you want. You can roll them in a sort of cylinder and then slice them. I have, when I've been in the mood to be fancy, I have rolled them in a cylinder and then rolled the cylinder in finely chopped nuts so the outside has them on. That's really picky, but it's kind of fun to do for a special occasion. As I said, these are going to be mixed sizes, and they're not really going to spread, so you can put them pretty close together on your cookie sheet. And if they start falling apart a little, squish them back together. It's all about the taste. And you'll notice these are pretty small, but they're very rich. I mean, you're talking butter and cheese in large quantities, so you don't need too many. Plus, there's nothing wrong with eating 4 or 5 of them if they're really tiny. Okay, so I'm going to pop these on the cookie sheet and bake them for 10 minutes. All right, they're out of the oven. You see, they're not really brown, they're just a little golden on the bottom. That's kind of what you want. And I ended up doing them 2 more minutes. I wanted a little bit of browning. You can take them off the cookie sheet right away and let them cool, and they will be fine for at least a week in a airtight room temperature, out in the open cover. Geez, you know what I mean. Here's one of the really lumpy ones. Those we put aside because how could we serve that to family or friends? We have to save those and eat them ourselves. But you still have plenty of wonderful little treats in here. They're great on their own. You could serve them with grapes or fruit. Oops, see, they're golden on the bottom. And that's it. Enjoy.